Roboco-op is a new way for human experts to collaborate with machines to produce something more productive than either. Roboco-op is a computational blackboard. It's hosted within Observable computational notebooks. The ChatGPT dialog state is encoded within the notebook. Notebook environments divide programs into small cells, and each cell, as shown here, was produced by an LLM and corrected by a human. So the idea is that we make everything mutable and everything under human control. This is the prompt interface. The simplest way of using Roboco-op is to ask a question, and this will submit a request to OpenAI using existing cells as the historical context. The robot will respond with an answer, and you need to copy that answer over and insert it as a JavaScript cell into the notebook, and the notebook environment will execute it. Here we ask for a function that would get all the repositories of an organization from GitHub. Note the prompt is encoded at the top there, so the pasted cell includes the request response pair. Now, we manually call the function with a specific organization. So this has nothing to do with AI, and we can see that it's returned quite a lot of data. Later I'll show you how you can take that data and feed it back into the LLM. But because that's too much data, that will blow up the context. I'm going to manually filter it. Observable supports client-side JavaScript execution. So if you know JavaScript, it's not too difficult to learn Observable and to do these little tidy up tasks. We could probably get the robot to generate this cleaner function, but as a human expert who already knows how to program, it's actually far quicker for me to just do it. So now the data has been executed in the notebook. Next, we want to feed that data back into the chat context. At the moment, the last thing it knows is that we asked it to write a function. But now we're going to find the variable we want, switch it to JSON, and tell Roboco-op to include it in the next prompt. When we ask for a markdown summary of those repositories, and because we told the blackboard to include that particular cell state, the AI will be able to generate something that is not dynamically linked to the data source. Note here there's a shortcut for copying the code. You have to do that a lot. We'll improve that UX. Look, now it's generated a piece of markdown. All these links works. They take you to GitHub. So everything is editable in Roboco-op. So our prompt was bloated by the inclusion of data. We don't need to include that data in the context anymore because essentially the same data is in the markdown cell. So a huge advantage is we can rewrite our prompt for what we want to store. And then there's these other cells that we created. These were just really scaffolding towards our task. We're not interested in them anymore. We can delete those, and then they are purged from the chat context. Roboco-op is all about giving you total control over the chat context that gets sent to OpenAI. And the unit is the notebook cell, which has great flexibility across notebooks as well. So if you look at the top, there's a blank one. This is completely free of chat state. You can take that blank one, fork it, now it's yours. The current chat context is empty, it's a blank slate. But we can paste what we took from the other one into this one now. And now if you look, although we've not executed an LLM yet, if we look at the chat context, we've continued from just that cell we generated. And now we can jam off this one in a more focused manner. So I'm thinking that this markdown summary is nice, but it could be a lot better. I want to ask the robot to do a better job. I want it to look cooler for a markdown cell. And the problem with their LLMs is they don't really know much about Observable, so it won't actually be very good at this task. The purpose of Roboco-op is to make it easy to infuse human-curated knowledge into the collaboration, then quickly reinforce where the robot is weak. We are not passively hoping that the robot says the right thing, and indeed it makes many mistakes, but you can correct these mistakes, and the process of correction is documented, and it internalizes these course corrections into future generation. So in this case there was a variable clash. So the first attempt is just a hallucination of descriptions. So sure, it looks a bit better, but that's not what I was aiming for. But because we have a total mutable history, we can just scratch that and let's just start again. Ultimately, we've reached a dead end here. The robot doesn't know enough about Observable to get the most out of the markdown cell. But this is the power of Roboco-op. We can take other cells as pre-trained knowledge from other notebooks. I call these skills. So I've already trained it in another notebook how to do really good markdown tricks unique to the Observable platform. And when we insert this cell, suddenly the context is now expanded to include both these data sources. the LLM just becomes competent at this other thing. And in actual fact, we've merged two different dialogue histories into one. And now when we ask it to do a better job, we're going to ask it to use real data from GitHub. Now, in this case, it's actually decided that it's going to do it in two cells. So the first cell, it does a fetch, and then when we ask it exactly the same thing, it now does a dynamic map over that data. And again, it's made a few mistakes. It's called the variable the wrong name, and it's had a name in the clash, but we can fix those. I know how to fix those, and now we've got its intent realized with the help of a human. And yeah, this is data actually coming from Observable, so that's a pretty spectacular execution. And the main thing we changed here was that we included this additional pre-trained skill. So you can include skills from other notebooks, and it just radically improves its performance on new specific tasks. Okay, let's look how you get set up. You need to put in your OpenAI key. You can set the completion endpoint so it can be used with proxies, and you can fiddle around with the model. It's all open source, and it's implemented in Observable Notebook user space. So everything about the Roboco-op system is itself hosted in a notebook. So if you want to fiddle around with some of the low-level details, you can open it. Some of the parts, the settings, the UI were actually generated by Roboco-op. You don't actually see that cell in the context because it's been excluded, but you can fix that, and you can add other cells to exclusions. Roboco-op is MIT licensed, it's all open source. I think there's great value in human-human collaboration, particularly when it comes to sharing skills. You'll be able to take a notebook from anyone else in the community and include them into your notebook to have your robots gain that power. So the community is organized on Reddit. I hope to see you there. Let's build the future of human LLM collaboration together. Thank you.